for California. So that's kind of the headspace that Peter is in right now. He has his own apartment. Aunt May is checking in on him, and hope.
Let's watch Umberville. And it's low key.
Fresh from her own UFO sighting, but all of it pointed back to something stranger, an entity that Crowley said he contacted and drawn in 1918. A bald, huge-eyed face that looks exactly like the alien grays we recognize today, decades before anyone had ever described one, guys. Now let's go ahead and pause our favorite song, Shave 'Em Dry by Lucille Bogan, and let's talk about the non-stop psyop. So come at you live, not really. Welcome to the podcast, my friends. This is not really a podcast. This is just a video on my main channel. That's, I just talk more, and I cut less out, pretty much. And I also talk about stranger, more bizarre stuff that would never, ever rationally be in a main channel video. So, today we're going down the deep dive of this guy. Before we go any further, flick that like button and pinch that subscribe button like you. Pinch and flick the nipples on your titties big as the end of your thumb. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys watching. Aleister Crowley was born Edward Alexander Crowley to a wealthy fundamentalist Christian family in 1875. His family owned a lucrative brewing business called Crowley's Alton Ales. Crowley had a strained relationship with his mother, who early on in his life gave him the name The Beast, a name he would grow to love and adapt into his life later. His magic. His parents were evangelical fundamentalist Christians, and Crowley would be sent to the evangelical boarding school H.T. Habersham in Hastings, which sounds like a made-up place in Mordor, potentially. But no, it's actually a real place in the United Kingdom. This was followed by Ebor Prep in Cambridge. And yes, I'm still speaking the same language, and yes, those are just places in Britain, alright? My fellow Americans. Dr. Pepper, water, Twilight Fusion, Echelon, Sour Boys, energy drinks. In that order. Yeah. Oh yeah, non-stop psyop, baby girl. Also, I think this is out now. We have Rocket Pop Sour Gummies available for a very limited time only. We put them up before the 4th of July, but go to sour.gg. If they're sold out, there's plenty of other really interesting stuff. And we have, honestly, so much planned for Sour Boys. I've talked about it many times, but since we're on the podcast now and we're a little less tried for time, we haven't made money since we started. Obviously, that's normal. You put money into a business, 3 years or whatever, money comes back out eventually. May was almost profitable. It was basically profitable on a P&L for our balance sheet. But June has been our only month in which we have had weekly, we've been in the black, which I'm not like saying that to brag or anything, but I put everything into this business, and my wife has supported this dream for me and my friends and family and her friends and family. And we haven't had to give up any ownership to anybody corporate or anything like that until this point. So we have control, we can do whatever we want, and we can have fun and do, you know, as much cool stuff. I mean, look at the art on the site. It's just so, everything is so expensive, and it's really difficult to do things in a cool, unique way now in business. And, you know, I'm incredibly, eternally grateful to you guys for allowing it to be a reality, and then obviously incredibly grateful for the support from my wife and her helping run the business, and then my friends and family who do customer service, fulfillment, and all that, you know, logistics, and making of the candy and stuff. It's really cool. I'm very grateful, and Sour Boys is a genuinely awesome thing that I love. And we have cut no corners, and we still have a lot further to go, obviously. We want to build a thing. We want to build basically where we're at, we want to build a huge Willy Wonka facility where you guys can come and look, watch us make candy. We also want to have a drive-in movie theater on the property with a concession stand where you can get Sour Boys, and also Thrice. We want to start a food truck where you guys can come, watch movies, do a tour with the Sour Boys factory, and I don't know, just a bunch of really cool stuff. Also, putt-putt, mini golf, because where we're at, there's nothing to do. So, yeah, we really want to do dope shit like that. And the only reason it would ever be possible is because of y'all. So, support the channel, go buy some candy, and that's really all I ask of you. Hopefully we don't have any more ads on the channel other than stuff we're doing very soon. Now that the business is profitable, that's looking like it's going to be reality. So, anyways, Crowley's father would die of tongue cancer in 1887, and Alistair inherited the family's wealth. And after his father's death, he would bounce from school to school, becoming increasingly critical of Christianity. Perhaps as a result of this, he would go against Christian morality, and he would embrace things like sex, sexuality, and other vices, like talking to aliens and stuff, magic. His love of prostitutes would result in his contraction of gonorrhea and eventually syphilis. So, you know, during the later part of his life, diseases of various kinds and severity. By 1894, Crowley had found a love of chess, poetry, and mountain climbing. His mountain climbing record included climbing Jungfrau, Monk, and Wetterhorn of the Alps, all strange European names. Earlier this morning, I was sitting out on the concrete outside my home, and my dogs were obviously crowding around me, operating. I was trying to meditate, and he ran in front of me. I had a conversation like this, basically. Not that I was like praying, I was sitting on a slot squatting, I was just chilling. And he ran up her head underneath, like my hands in his shin, and he ran back away, and I was there, I was like, oh shit. She ran up to me and just shot me. It was insane. But, somehow pretty cute though, and very funny. Biographers Richard Spence and Tobias Churchton took the stance that Crowley was a spy for British Secret Services, and he was used to infiltrate certain groups during his life, which makes sense. In 1895, Crowley had adopted the name Alistair, which is the Gaelic form of his name, and he had enrolled at Trinity College in Cambridge. While at Trinity College, he studied philosophy and then changed to English literature. Basically, he went from one useless thing to the other, right? English lit majors and philosophy majors. That's what they tell you, but now if I had kids and they wanted to work on Wall Street, I'd be disappointed. Anyways, I'm learning more as I get older. It's really strange. Aleister Crowley would embrace chess. By the way, I'm not condemning Aleister Crowley by saying that. I think I was being facetious and sarcastic. The things that I say are not true. They're meant to be sarcastic and funny because it's so absurd. I like studying philosophy. You don't really have to study business stuff to be good and make money at it, just so you're aware. Alistair would embrace chess, becoming the president of the chess club, as well as poetry with his own poems appearing in multiple occasions.
Alright, this definitely still got juice, bro.
Resulting in his feats being recognized. While on a in Stockholm in December 1896, Crowley would have his first mystical experience. He would awaken one night after an illness, claiming he had a revelation that he possessed the power to call forth the imminent deity. Some biographers believe that this was Crowley coming to terms with his bisexuality and allowing himself to be true to himself for the first time. He would start engaging in same-sex activities despite their illegality at the time. In 1897, he would begin a short-lived relationship with Herbert Charles Pollitt.
So I wanted a new credit card, not a hit to my credit. Good thing Experian has no ding decline. They matched me with cards that won't ding my credit. Big financial firm, Experian.
In October 1897, Crowley would fall ill once again, this time to dedicate himself entirely to the occult. And Crowley's relationship with Paul was due to Crowley's growing interest in esoterica. He's a very odd, strange fellow, it turns out. Too odd and strange for Herbert. In 1898, Crowley obtained the Book of Black Magic and of Pax and Cloud on Sanctuary. He became rich without the degree. Crowley would be introduced to George Cecil Jones.
Space creatures! Commies!
I like Ike, and I'm proud of it.
All these groups seem like boys' clubs. You don't have to give anything up.
Hairless hamsters from space. God, I hope none of the other cops see this.
From outer space.
You want a piece of me? Well, me staying on my feet.
Bruh.
The outer order of the Golden Dawn by the leader Samuel L. Adams. Richard Spencer provided.
You want your piece? Hold it right there! Oh, you did it now, boyo.
It was you, poor cows, weren't it?
Don't drop it!
I'm not afraid of you, space boy. Put me down!
Hold it right there! Move over! Stop! Drop it!
What did I do to you?
No! Drop me! You can't do this! I'm a police officer! You're going downtown.
They didn't like the game. But it is funny that a group of ceremonial magicians were such bigoted towards this other ceremonial Anyways, he was denied initiation into the group's intersect order. This by visiting matters. Crowley tried to seize the vault of the adepts and was seeing intersections.
It's a good day to die, you little bastard.
Funny Spence reads this whole thing differently, though. Crowley only looked like Adler's loyal enforcer.
You know what they call me in the war?
Very interesting.
Crypto, you don't have authorization to leave.
Travel to Mexico to get some of that burrito.
You're spaceman property.
Get that burrito. He was like really obsessed with burrito tacos. They're good. They're good. They're all the rage right now. Spence would claim that this was under orders to find oil to fuel the British military. While there, he further experimented with ceremonial magic. This time, burrito tacos were his primary medium. He integrated the Enochian invocations into his magic with a K at the end, by the way. In 1902, he would begin a friendship with Gerald Kelly in Paris. And after becoming a fixture of the Parisian art scene, he would marry Rose Edith Kelly in 1903 to prevent an arranged marriage. And it was during their traveling honeymoon through Paris, Cairo, and Ceylon that Crowley would find his career-defining magic thelema. This is very important to keep up. We'll put some images on the screen to help kind of get you on the right understanding of what this is so you can have a visual, but if you're listening audio only, good luck. Remember that night in the pyramid I was talking about a little while ago? Well, something crazy happened, and both Rose and Crowley tell slightly different stories. But on March 16, 1904, Crowley performed the Bornless Ritual, an ancient rite of self-purification and god-summoning while spending the night in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Rose, who had no real belief in any of it, fell into a trance. 2 days later, on March 18th, Crowley invoked the god Thoth, and through the entranced Rose came a name, Horus, the one waiting for him. That same day, Crowley took Rose to the Bulak Museum in Cairo and asked her to find Horus. She wandered a museum full of artifacts she knew nothing about and walked straight to the right one. Horus on the stele of Enka Kansu. I don't know if I'm saying any of this correctly, but it's on screen here if you guys want to try to pronounce it yourselves. This thing's catalog number was 666, the number of the beast, just like what dear old mom used to call Crowley again. The beast.
Oh god.
On March 20th, Crowley invoked Horus again through Rose. And on March 23rd, he paid to have the stele translated to understand what he'd been shown, but there was a twist. Crowley thought he'd been speaking with Horus the whole time. Rose, the one actually receiving the messages, later told him it had never been Horus at all. The voice belonged to something else. Iwas.
Whoa. What's that? I just built a budgeting app in Base 44. Guys, Nana just built an app.
Impossible. You're not kidding. Crowley would describe this encounter with Iwas in his later book, The Equinox of the Gods. Crowley would often refer to Iwas as his guardian angel, fitting that he said that Iwas' voice always came over his left shoulder. He didn't physically hear it, but he felt it resonate from within his heart. Iwas spoke in a tempered but efficient manner, as if knowing they only had an hour each day they were to speak. The English being spoken to him seemed to have no discernible accent at all, with no embellishments or turns of phrases indicating he came from anywhere in particular. Iwas appeared to be a tall, dark, and handsome young guy, and in his 30s. He appeared active and strong, with the face of a savage king. He was dressed in clothes that weren't quite Arab, vaguely suggesting Assyria or Persia, but nothing he could really place. Iwas had provided a knowledge immeasurably more than anything Crowley was aware of. Crowley explicitly stating, "We are forced to conclude that the author of the Book of the Law is an intelligence both alien and superior to myself, yet acquainted with my inmost secrets and most important point of all, that this intelligence is discarnate." Crowley goes on to say that Iwas opens up a new avenue to knowledge, not yet seen by mankind, and that Iwas was a separate, real entity, not just a magical manifestation sharing its insights. Crowley was instructed to enter a temple on April 7th. The temple was really his own mind, a bare room where he'd write whatever he was given. The next day, April 8th, Iwas arrived, and from April 8th to 10th, noon to 1 p.m., Iwas would dictate to Aleister Crowley the Book of the Law, the central text of Telema. The book would introduce three central entities: the Beast, Crowley himself, the Scarlet Woman, the goddess consort figure Crowley called Babylon, and Kansu. I think that's how you say it. Kansu. It seems like bullshit, but undocumented comes to nearly all work Crowley would continue with came from this central text. Crowley claims these things were dictated to him, but even he was unsure what they entirely meant. He stated in the Equinox of the Gods that no forwarder could have prepared so complex, susceptible, numerical, and literal positive. And he's, by the way, this whole time, very reliable source of information with all the diseases and ripping holes through his brain. Crowley said the book came from somewhere beyond the human, what he called proto-human, and even he couldn't fully decode it. He spent years writing a companion document called the Comment, which is a kind of instruction manual insisting no one could truly read the book of the law without the companion. Published much later in 1925, Crowley meant the inclusion of the Comment as a disclaimer for use of the book. Even the interpretation of the comment is subjective, varying from reader to reader. So, I don't know. It seems like maybe this guy was kind of full of shit. I don't know if you guys are big into the occult, but I mean, it sort of looked like a sales pitch. Well, actually, here's a book that comes from the gods. You can buy it, you can read it, but you sure need this little companion. This other one I wrote called Comment, by the way. Free shipping if you get one for your friends. Once Crowley was inducted to the Order Templi Orientis, the OTO, a German occult fraternity, he would soon take over. In 1912, he would make the Telema its central magical practice. Over the area entirely in 1925. Telema itself has been expanded on up to the modern day with some Telemic scholars such as Alan Greenfield, who built a cipher claiming to decode messages from the UFO knots, working on integrating this work with high strangeness events. A big fan of the phrase high strangeness, by the way. Crowley continues magical endeavors to better understand the book and the information passed on to him from Ives. Spence attests that leading up to World War I, Crowley claimed to be part of a German sympathizer, but only to get inside and report back to the British. Though Crowley claimed the Eon of Horus, the new age of mankind he believed he was ushering in, began in 1904 when he first made contact with Ives, and he wanted a more concrete way of establishing this. Crowley believed that humanity was on the cusp of entering the next age. During this time in 1910, Crowley and his associates were engaged in the Barsabel work. The goal was to bring about the Eon of Horus to invoke the spirit of Mars. Sounds like I'm just making shit up. But by invoking the spirit of Mars, they would then ask if nations would rise against nation to enter this new age. But it was reported that the spirit of Mars responded, claiming the bloody conflict was coming within 5 years. 4 years later, it did. World War I, 1914. Also, basically any idiot in Europe in the early 20th century could have guessed at some point that there would be a massive war. Come on, guys. The spirit would also claim that the Scarlet Woman would be critical in this new age and that she needed to be resolute if she was going to remain on the proper course. The spirit of Mars was cryptic, still not giving Crowley the answers that arose from the work given to him by his guardian agent, Ives. In 1918, Crowley was still searching for answers and crafting the Comment. While in New York City, he would meet a woman named Roddy Minor, and she would become his newest partner and his Scarlet Woman. Crowley would conduct rituals with Roddy, renamed Soror Ahita, from January to June. These rituals would become known as the Amalantra.
Dingle.
The Amalantra working was only possible through the mediumship of Roddy, and Crowley claimed one physical manifestation occurred through these rituals. An entity came through a portal in the space between the stars. The entity was called Lum. That night, Crowley drew a portrait of what he'd seen. The portrait from the very beginning of his story. That's right, I just jump-stated that shit. Big black eyes. It's an alien gray. The face that, decades before anyone described a gray alien, looked literally like a gray alien. Its trace beneath his portrait was Lama is the Tibetan word for way or path, and Lama is he who goeth, the specific title of the gods of Egypt, the treader of the path, and the Buddhistic phraseology. Its numerical value is 71, the number of this book. In plain terms, Crowley was claiming that Lama wasn't just a name, it was a path or a doorway tied by a cult number mysticism straight into his own scripture. Very convenient for Crowley. Lama described himself to Crowley as an entity sent to him in order to guide him through the book. He was the guide necessary to understand the teachings of Ives, and one of these teachings was that the universe was like an egg, waiting for its moment to hatch into something new. Followers of Crowley, such as Kenneth Crank, the occultist who later fused Long with modern UFO lore, would assert that Long was sent to fulfill the work of Atlas, and Long was really Atlas wearing a new face, a less handsome, king-like face. Less king-like, less handsome face, I guess. It was the same intelligence from 1904 returning to Crowley in a different form, conveniently enough. And since this portal was open, other occultists believe that other entities have come through the portal that Crowley and Roddy had opened in the fabric of space and time. Eventually, Crowley's teachings would reach unexpected figures. One of these figures was Jack Parsons, the founder of Jet Propulsion Labs. Parsons was a self-taught chemist who believed magic was the next frontier of science. That is awesome. In 1939, Parsons began the works of Crowley. He became so entrenched in this work, he would reach out to Crowley and become the American representative of the OTO. Parsons had completely embraced the teachings of Thelma and became one of Crowley's most dedicated students. In 1942, Crowley had Parsons anointed as the head of the OTO's Agape Lodge in Pasadena, California. Parsons would blend occultism into his rocket developments, dancing and chanting from Crowley's poetry. Parsons credited his rocket breakthroughs at his Caltech lab, Galset, to the occult, and when the military placed a huge order for his jet-assisted takeoff boosters, that same lab was renamed, as you know today, JPL, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It's, unfortunately, there's just like all these links back to the missing scientists now, and Epstein, I almost said David Epstein, his name is Jeffrey, not David. I'd love him to know. During this time, Parsons would befriend a young science fiction writer. This young science fiction writer would work with him on rituals taught to Parsons through Crowley's works. That author was L. Ron Hubbard, the future founder and god of Scientology. I don't think he's actually a god, but he's certainly a freak-ass. Parsons would create an occult compound from his home known as the Parsonage. L. Ron Hubbard would stay with Parsons at the Parsonage. That would be like me calling my house Oopaville. That would be so stupid if I did that.
Oh, that's crazy.
Come on, guys. Crowley thought Hubbard was a charlatan and a fraud, a con man that only to use people for his own self-interest. While Parsons would typically trust Crowley's judgment, in this case, in regard to Hubbard, he would not. Somehow, Aleister Crowley knew Ron Hubbard was full of shit. In early 1946, Parsons and Hubbard began engaging in certain rituals to physically manifest Babylon, the Scarlet Woman. These rituals would be known as the Babylon Working. The belief was that they could physically manifest the Scarlet Woman, even though neither Parsons nor Hubbard were the natural medium that Crowley and Roddy had been. Crowley knew Parsons was engaging in these rituals with Hubbard after explicitly condemning it and commenting, "I get fairly frantic when I contemplate the idiocy of these louds." Parsons would hilariously employ Nokian magic, masturbating on magic tablets while listening to Prokofiev's second violin concerto. All the while Hubbard would be his scribe. I assume watching the masturbation. After the last ritual of that first phase in February of 1946, Parsons declared Phase 1 complete. He said, "Phase 1 is complete." Upon returning to the parsonage, the red-headed Marjorie Cameron was there. Cameron knew nothing about magic, nothing about the OTO, or that Parsons and Hubbard had secretly invoked her to appear to them. She also wasn't a believer. However, she did report her recent sighting of a UFO. Parsons, he believed the sighting was a materialization of Babylon, guiding Cameron to him. Parsons would continue now with the second phase of the Babylon work, engaging in sex magic rituals with Cameron while Hubbard assisted. I guess that means he just sat in the corner and watched. They took inspiration from Crowley's Moonchild, his novel about magically conceiving a divine child, believing they too could magically fertilize a child through immaculate conception, an elemental child, the Scarlet Woman. The second phase of the working attempted to shatter the boundaries of time and space to ensure the Eon of Horus had truly emerged. After the final ritual, Parsons would claim he was a success and was given Liber 49, fourth part of the Book of the Law. He would refer to this as the Book of Babylon. Parsons would then sell the parsonage. And then, within a year, came two things: crash at Roswell and the death of Aleister Crowley. Increasing UFOs, humanoid encounters, and entities. Within a decade, strange events started spreading across America. The label for them came later: high strangeness. It was coined by UFO researcher J. Allen Hynek in the 1970s to capture exactly this. the peculiar, bizarre, and utterly absurd. As mentioned previously, shortly after the completion of the Babylon working, there was the crash at Roswell. Had love come through a portal in the space between stars? What else could have come through? Could the Babylon working have kept the same portal open? And was that portal responsible for the high strangeness events we would experience in the latter half of the century? There were a wave of UFO sightings following World War II. Men like Gray Barker, the writer who introduced the Men in Black to UFO lore, began investigating the UFO phenomenon. They are confronted with exactly that. This could be a whole other topic, by the way. Maybe it will be, but the Men in Black aren't the alien-fighting heroes that pop culture made them out to be. Like with the movie Men in Black. Gray Barker would look at the Men in Black phenomenon. These are some kind of entities masquerading as humans, trying to be human and learn things, like Fringe. John Keel, the journalist behind Mothman Prophecies, began looking into the UFO phenomenon as well, leading him to his most interesting case in Point Pleasant, West Baghdad, more or less than Mothman. He would pin the Mothman Prophecies and document his contact with Indrid Cold, the smiling humanoid that he said visited Point Pleasant along with Men in Black, UFOs, and strange sightings plaguing this small town. Then there was the rash of stranger cryptids unlike things that had been recorded before. The Hopkinsville Goblins, the Dover Demon, the Flatwoods Monster. One of Crowley's students, Kenneth Grant, began to examine the connection between Crowley, esoterica, and the UFO phenomena. And his relationship began. He was given an illustration of Lom in 1945, was compelled by it, and believed there was something more there. From 1972 onwards, he began integrating the work of the Telema with ufology. He agreed with Crowley that Lom was a preter-human entity, and that Lom was the way, as Crowley was told, but that Lom was the mass of Iwas. Through Lom, humanity could better understand the extraterrestrial knowledge granted by Iwas. Almost in tandem with Grant, a fellow OTO member named Alan Greenfield began folding not just UFOs, but the whole range of high strangeness events into Telema. Greenfield may now be best known for his appearance in Heller, the paranormal docuseries about the recent Kentucky Goblin sightings. He is known for studying the occult workings of the Men in Black and what he calls UFO nuts. Hilarious little term. But Greenfield himself is his own character worthy of examination. Wild history of adapting the works of others to and weird, but a large amount of his career working on ciphers, his most famous, the secret cipher of the UFO nuts. His system for turning any name into a hidden message. I really like that a lot. People start, reading names, and they're like, this means 7, this means 8, 8 means 9, 5 means 6, 4 plus 3 is 9, plus 5 is 7, and you subtract pee-pee, and you add poo-poo, and then you get the nipples on your titties, big as the end of my thumbs. I got something between my legs that'd make a dead man come. Oh yeah. Direct quote from Aleister Crowley. Despite his ties to both sides of conflicts across both world wars, Crowley claimed he's always loyal to the British crown, and that he was recruited by British intelligence throughout his life. Biographers Spence and Churton assert he was also part of this. However, the only evidence we have of this, really beyond their assertions, is the claim from Ian Fleming, the James Bond author who apparently based James Bond off of Sir Christopher Lee, the best actor of all time, one of my favorite actors. I love Sir Christopher Lee. Anyways, Ian Fleming, the James Bond author, then serving in British naval intelligence, attested that he did consider using Crowley to interrogate Rudolf Hess, which was Hitler's deputy who'd flown to Britain in 1941 over their shared love of the occult. The Nazis loved the occult as well, but Crowley would die the same year the Babylon working was complete, penniless in shared housing, squandering away his wealth in pursuit of debauchery and the occult. It was likely the chronic bronchitis that had plagued him for years that finally caught up to him and smashed him on the pavement. After his death, a smattering of students left to carry on the work of Telema. It seems really crazy to me that there's not just like, if this